People tend to think in threes: blood, sweat, and tears. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Moe, Larry, and Curly. It's no different when it comes to bad news. If recent history is a trinity, Europe is now facing its unholy ghost. Its leadership. Having already stared down two prior crises in just over a decade, you had the 2008 financial meltdown and the 2015 migrant crisis, the pandemic is, without question, the most severe of those three. But the way it's been handled in some European countries where public health guidelines were followed and science eclipsed politics is markedly different than in much of the United States. The EU and the United States have comparable populations, and since April, the average 3-day count of new European deaths fell by 97%. In the United States, that figure dropped by only 2/3, with the epicenter of the global virus shifting to the Western Hemisphere. You might point to stricter social distancing and mask wearing in Europe as one reason, and you wouldn't be wrong. 78% of French residents now say they wear masks, 81% of Italians, 86% of Spaniards. In the US, it's just 71%, with local leaders in some areas still actively discouraging the practice. But that's not the full story. And Europe doesn't speak with one voice. In Sweden, where the mortality rate is nearly a third higher than in the United States, just 5% of Swedes say they cover their face in public. Too attractive, apparently. In Belarus, which is not an EU member, President Lukashenko has taken a different approach altogether.
Ну, я человек не пьющий, но в последнее время в шутку говорю, что водкой надо не только руки мыть, но, наверное, в день 40-50 грамм в пересчете на чистый спирт травить этот вирус.
Right. Next up, the social toll. As the months tick by under quarantine, pressure is building to get back to business, despite warnings of contagion.
All we have done is suppress the first wave, and when you take the brakes off, you would expect it to come back.
U.S. states have reopened only to close again when caseloads increase, whereas much of Europe has pursued a more phased approach. But it's hard. Social distancing butts up against human nature and tests our capacity for cooperation. The scientific community, meanwhile, is in no rush to return to normal.
Working from home for many companies remains a perfectly good option.
There's reason to listen. Countries like Germany, which focused on quick containment and widespread testing, have fared much better than the United States, where the nation's authority on infectious disease is fair game for political point scoring. Senior White House trade official Peter Navarro trashed Anthony Fauci in an opinion article in the USA Today, while the White House reportedly compiled a list of all the times Fauci had been wrong.
It is a bit bizarre. I don't really fully understand it.
President Trump has since distanced himself from such attacks.
We're all in the same team, including Dr. Fauci. I have a very good relationship with Dr. Fauci.
And top Republican leadership have recently also expressed their support.
What's your level of confidence in Dr. Fauci at this point?
Total.
It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. You're Republican, Democrat, anybody else. We're all in this together.
When it comes to the science itself, rarely has there been such a global focus on a common enemy. Just don't expect the politics to go away. How well a nation can separate the two may very well determine the next phase of this crisis.